Jacob's family. Before this story, we learned about Jacob's journey to Laban. Jacob was affirmed by the Lord that he would be blessed as his father Isaac was, and his father Jacob. Upon arrival, Jacob met Rachel and immediately fell in love. In exchange for being able to marry Rachel, Jacob agreed to work for Laban for 7 years. Now we will learn about Jacob marrying Laban's older daughter Leah first, before marrying Rachel, and the web of jealousy that bore an entire nation, inspired by the book of Genesis. Jacob had toiled the ground of Laban for 7 years. Jacob counted the months until he could finally be united with Rachel as husband and wife. Daily he saw her tending the sheep and pined after her. Their love and desire for one another burned deeply even before marriage, and as the time approached, Jacob's countenance grew brighter. Finally, it was time. Jacob, with his head held high, approached Laban. 7 years has passed, and I have worked faithfully for you, Jacob said. Now give me my wife, so that we can make love and build a life together. Laban wasted no time, and gathered together all the people for a great feast. Jacob's dream to be with Rachel was finally becoming a reality. Yet Jacob's wedding would not end the way he thought it would, nor would his marriage be the dream come true he expected. Late into the night before the wedding was going to commence, Laban took his oldest daughter Leah and dressed her in a wedding gown and veil to cover her face, for back then it was custom for the bride to be covered. Leah was not adorned with the same beauty as her sister. Rather, she carried herself plainly and did not draw the same attention as Rachel. In Jacob's excitement and revelry with wedding music and wine, he took Leah as his wife. The two of them were one, and Jacob went into Leah for the first time, thinking it was Rachel. Jacob, the man who had tricked his own brother and father into giving up their birthrights and blessings, found himself in a wedding bed with the wrong woman, tricked by his father-in-law. The next morning, as the sun just began to rise above the peaks in the horizon, Jacob awoke. The night before he had hardly remembered, but he did remember that he was finally married to Rachel after 7 years of labor. He turned to his wife and was bewildered to find Leah laying next to him. Inconsolable, Jacob bolted out of his tent in a fit of rage. Arms flailing and heart pounding, Jacob pinned Laban to the wall of his tent. "What have you done to me?" Jacob shouted. "Did I not serve you faithfully for Rachel? Why have you deceived me like this?" Laban, knowing he had gotten away with his plan, grinned. "It is not custom for the younger daughter to be married before the oldest daughter," he said nonchalantly. "You can marry Rachel, of course, but only if you have served me another 7 years." Jacob was distraught. The trickster had been outplayed at his own game. Jacob agreed to Laban's terms. He had no choice if he wanted to be with Rachel. He married Rachel a week later, and then served Laban for another 7 years. Jacob and Leah had sex for children, but Jacob and Rachel made love for passion. This would send Leah into a spiral of insecurity and spite, a spiral that would ultimately lead to a feud that lasted years. God saw that Leah was despised by Jacob and Rachel, and had compassion on her. He opened her womb and made her fruitful. Though Rachel was barren and left childless, Leah conceived and bore a son and called his name Reuben. In her heart of hearts, she truly believed that if she bore a son, Jacob would love her. So began Leah's desperate mission to fill a void in her life left by her husband. She conceived again and bore a son, and named him Simon. She believed Simon was a gift from God because her husband hated her. Leah bore another son, Levi. After 3 sons, she truly believed that Jacob would love her. Yet Jacob continued to love Rachel, and Leah fell deeper into depression. For a 4th time Leah conceived and bore a son. His name was Judah. And this time, instead of hoping that another son would make Jacob love her, Leah praised God, thanking him for his faithfulness. After Judah was born, Leah ceased bearing children. Rachel knew that she was barren and hated her sister for giving Jacob sons when she could not. Rachel's jealousy towards Leah caused her to lash out at Jacob. "Give me children, or I shall die." Jacob's anger boiled up towards Rachel, for he too was angry that they could not have children together. "Am I in the place of God? I cannot open and close your womb." So Rachel devised a plan that hearkened back to Sarah in the wilderness of Canaan. "Here is my servant, Bilhah," Rachel said. "Go into her, and she will have a child on my behalf." So she gave Jacob her servant, and Jacob gladly slept with her, repeating the sins of his grandfather Abraham. Jacob and Bilhah conceived, and bore a son named Dan. Rachel was pleased, but wanted more. Not because she truly wanted children, but because she could not bear the thought of her sister having more than her. Jacob and Bilhah continued, and Bilhah had another son on Rachel's behalf. "With great struggle I have triumphed over my sister." So she named her second son Naphtali. The cycle of jealousy did not cease. Leah, to spite Rachel and gain the love of Jacob, gave her servant to be with Jacob so they might have more children. Her servant, Milpah, and Jacob slept together and bore Gad. Yet Leah was not satisfied. She gave Zilpah to Jacob again, and the two bore Asher. Jacob, caught in the middle of a civil war, made no protests. He sat by and enjoyed the fruit of his wives' insecurities. He refused to care for their hearts or reassure them of his love. No, Jacob had no such integrity, a quality he would soon be forced to possess. In the days of the wheat harvest, Reuben went out and found some mandrakes, a rare plant used for various medical and recreational uses. They were rare and valuable. Reuben brought them to his mother Leah. Rachel wanted some of his mandrakes and asked Leah if she could have some. Leah was in no mood to be generous with Rachel. "Isn't it enough that you have stolen my husband away from me? Now you want my son's mandrakes?" Leah protested. "In exchange for your mandrakes, you can lie with Jacob tonight. Will that satisfy you?" Rachel said. At this point, Jacob was a tool for Leah and Rachel's war against one another. No more love and no more dreams. Only spite marked Jacob's household. When Jacob was returning from the field, Leah came out to meet him. "I have given my son's mandrakes to Rachel so that you might lie with me." So Jacob slept with Leah that night, and Leah conceived a fifth son. They named him Issachar. The whirlwind of Leah and Rachel did not cease. Leah bore Jacob another son, and named him Zebulun. "Now my husband must honor me," Leah said. Leah was certain that 6 sons would prove to be enough for Jacob's love. Yet again she came back empty-handed. Afterwards Leah bore a daughter and named her Dinah. God turned his eyes toward Rachel. He listened to her honest cries for a son of her own. Under the moon and blessings of God, Jacob and Rachel made love. And from that love came Joseph, a miracle from God. Even though Rachel had conceived this miracle from God, she still got caught up in the trap all humans get stuck in, wanting more. Jacob was fruitful, and his sons were growing to be strong and ready to begin lives of their own. He decided it would be best to return to the land of his father Isaac. He approached Laban and said, "I have served you. I have given you grandchildren, and I have cared for your land and daughters. Allow me to leave and return home." Laban enjoyed having Jacob by his side. Jacob carried with him the blessings of God, and everything Jacob did, he did with excellence. "I will pay whatever it takes to have you stay here, for I am blessed because you are here," he replied. Jacob grew tired of Laban and greatly desired to leave his presence. "I have given you enough. Everything you have given me to take care of I have increased. Allow me, please, to depart with my own family." Laban agreed. and the two set up arrangements for Jacob to leave with a part of Laban's flocks. The agreement was that Jacob would take the blemished sheep, while Laban kept the pure white sheep. Laban tried first to trick Jacob and hid the speckled sheep so they would not breed and increase in number. However, Jacob, over dozens of years serving under Laban, had honed the craft of breeding and sheep-herding animals. Jacob specifically bred the pure sheep to produce more speckled and blemished sheep. Jacob was able to produce stronger and healthier sheep for himself in great number. Laban had tricked Jacob once, but Jacob was the ultimate trickster and would not be outdone again. So Jacob increased in wealth and influence. With his wives, children, and newfound freedom, Jacob ventured back to Canaan. Yet Laban would not let Jacob go unpunished.